All right. Well, hello. We're starting up the stream right now. Welcome to March's Concrete 5 Town Hall. Lots of stuff going on this last month. We're really getting a chance to focus on some of the community things that we've been talking about for a long time. So this is going to be a pretty exciting town hall. For us, at least, should be a good one to watch. So let's jump right into some call outs and thank yous from the community. BJ Corbin, I've got the Karma leaderboard up here on my screen. If you don't know, we have a Karma and badges system on concrete5.org. And you get points and badges for doing stuff. And then every week we give away some prizes and for folks kind of randomly from the top of the pile. This week it looks like Talakman, Jor, and MN Calais have all won add-ons for their work helping people, promoting the project, and working on the core. And also lots of other contributions down below and from weeks in between the last town hall now. So wanted to start things off by saying thank you very much to everybody who's been helping on the community site. Some big new stuff on the way there, and we really appreciate everything you're doing. Andy, do we have any pull requests and stuff from GitHub that you want to shout out?
Yeah, let's see. We've accepted a number of things as we get ready to do 853. We've accepted some pull requests from community members: Biplob, Dan Klassen, JBender0, Catalysis, Corvin, Matt 9MG, M. Locati, Mr. Carl Dilkington, and Chirac. And a special shout out goes to M. Locati. This one's kind of in progress. You can kind of call it 85% complete, but he has added some ability to actually test the upgrade process for Concrete5 by simulating a full installation and upgrade in Docker as part of our testing suite, which is pretty sweet. And obviously, as you might imagine, it's actually found an issue, so it's failing right now because there are some issues with some of the permutations of our upgrade process. So Perfect. That's broken by design, as it were, I suppose. But yeah, that's going to be helpful in making sure that things that we add don't inadvertently. It's only going to help the reliability of our upgrade process. So thank you, M. Locati, and I expect we'll continue to merge more stuff as we go. One thing I would mention, as you open pull requests and continue to work on stuff, if you're opening something in develop, you at this point, you really ought to consider, if it's anything more than the smallest change, you should consider opening it against the 9.0 branch of Concrete5, released /9.0.0, rather than the develop branch, because we are getting into a land where this always happens every 4 or 5 years, where for 3 or 4 years, where merging between develop and the next major release becomes very, very difficult due to the way that we might be, in this case, because of how we are changing our underlying assets from less to SaaS, and we're reorganizing how we bring them in. We're using NPM to bring them in, so we're not actually even shipping with any of the kind of raw assets from third-party vendors anymore. It's a lot different. And so if you open it against develop, you're going to run the risk of us just closing it and asking you to open it against release 9.0. It's possible if these are small template style fixes, we will accept them in develop for the next sort of point release, which is coming soon. And we'll just try and merge it as we go. But as the velocity on 9.0 gets going, expect us to ask you to open 2 pull requests or only open it against release 9.0, because it's just too difficult to merge between one to the other. So just a friendly reminder on that front. And yeah, I will hand it back to you, Franz.
Right. So you're saying we're really focusing on version 9. So yeah, unless it's a bug, don't expect much to happen in 8 at this point. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, we've got some documentation shout outs to BitBlop, Lenda, and the Northman. And we're going to talk more about documentation in a little bit. So I'll just say thank you and we'll circle back around. Additionally, we're going to kind of change the order here. Let's see, I want to do a little showcase site here. So let me jump over to this guy. Corbin, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Sweet. So this is a site built with Concrete5. We do this every month just because, folks wonder what can you build with Concrete5. And the answer is, of course, anything. But really, to try to target that a little bit more, we would say sites that have some real functionality to them. You can build a blog with Concrete5, and that's fine, but there's certainly many platforms to do that with. You can build an attractive little 6-page marketing site with Concrete5. But again, we're not alone there. One of the things that really does shine with Concrete5 is when you start building more complicated sites, community sites, searchable sites, things that have some more kind of data-driven functionality. So this is franchisemarket.ph. Is a site listing various franchises that you can open in the Philippines. Pretty cool. So you can come here and search. This is really interesting. I've just finished reading a book, E-Myth, that talks about kind of the franchising philosophy applied to business, which is pretty fascinating. So I'm all hopped up on the potential of franchises anyways. But, you got a search list here. And you can be like, I just want to start a franchise that has something to do with food. Scoop and Redbuck's coffee. That's not going to get in trouble. They're cool, right? But you got a bunch. I imagine. I don't know. I haven't seen the back end of this, but I would have to imagine these are attributes because they're searching by them. Nice. And you can get a bunch of information about it, and you can. If you want to post a franchise, it's free, and you're gonna look at that old Concrete5 sign up there, and you nice. Still do have content, like it's an attractive looking site, and there's a blog, and there's some basic content pages that are super easy to edit. I'm sure the site owners can get in there and do whatever they want by just popping a page in edit mode, which is tremendously valuable. But you also have this searchable database of opportunities where you can, I don't know if I'm going to find anything with those settings. Yeah, look, it went down to 10 from 250 some. So that's pretty cool. Thought that would be a good one to show. Thank you, John Lonquines, who is a freelance developer who's been around in Concrete5 land forever. Pretty low user number. I remember this name from, I guess back in 2012. Tells you right there. And looks like it was also, these guys are all over the website. Now this, I do not believe is a Concrete5 site, so we're not going to show this too much, but that's okay. You can do what you need to with your own stack. This one's a Concrete5 site, and we like it very much. So thanks for submitting that to the showcase. That came out of our showcase. If you would like your work featured in these shows, we would love to do that. You should submit your best stuff to the showcase, and we'll go through there and cherry pick things out that I think help kind of educate the prospective client on the potential of building with Concrete5.
Awesome.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, I was pretty stoked.
Yeah, that's nice.
Let's see. I don't have a web page for this. So one big thing that we've been working on this month is this questionnaire contest iPad giveaway. Ooh, I was going to have it out. It's right over there. I've got an iPad waiting to award to one of you. I was going to wave it around, but I forgot to do that. But wow, that was an exciting month. So we have an awful lot of responses, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that we have to go through and classify. And Mike Larson is driving that process, so it is thorough. There's a folksonomy that we're developing, and there's a point system that we're awarding to the different answers based on completeness and constructive criticism and all sorts of things that can add up, and that's how we're going to pick a winner. So it's going to take us a minute is the long version or short version of that long answer. It's probably actually going to take us the rest of the month. But we will announce a winner at the next town hall that we do. And I mean, it's already super helpful and clarifying. I mean, nothing in there that is like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that we should do X, Y, or Z. But some real consistent feedback that is not surprising. The most obvious one is we here need to do a much better job of communicating and documenting and supporting the folks who are using Concrete5 to build websites. I talked about this a month or two ago, but we have for a long part of our history here, we have kind of been in the trenches with you guys, building websites for larger clients, and that creates kind of a distraction or a dichotomy in how we spend our time, where it's easy for us to say, well, look, we're really busy doing this work, and so here's some free code, enjoy. And that's not very fair to you. It's not a lot of fun to have no idea what something does or how it does it or what you're supposed to do with it. And concrete5 is so fully featured at this point that we really would be better served by spending some significant energy, ongoing energy, on documentation, training, kind of the ongoing collabs with you guys. Hey, I'm stuck on this problem. Here's how we would do it. I'm eager to get our organization to a spot where we can afford to spend that time supporting what you're doing, that we're not also providing services to the same large pool of clients that we're providing support services to you guys, and you guys are building sites. You guys and gals are doing that. So that is our strategic objective here. We're going to get there by improving the hosting offering on our community site, so we can offer something of real value to you there. And it's easy for you to say, look, I would rather host our sites with the crew behind concrete5, because it does all sorts of DevOps and deploy things that make my life really easy. And so if you took that questionnaire, you may have noticed there's an awful lot of questions around hosting, because we need to get a better sense as to what you actually need. And you have given us that better sense. So I appreciate that, and thank you. I expect there'll be more of these questionnaires coming in the future. It's actually a lot of fun to see these things come in, and really helpful, as I've said before. So just wanted to update you on that. That is closed. Look forward to next month, maybe shortly thereafter. There might be another one starting up, and you want to see who wins, tune in for Town Hall next month. I'm sure we'll have a date here by the end of this one. And the large takeaway already is we need to do a better job communicating and really supporting the tribe that is the concrete5 crew, which segues quite handily, I think, to the relaunch of the doc section that happened post-haste yesterday. So let's see, a couple months ago, we started, maybe a little bit longer at this point, we started doing kind of weekly training sessions with this idea of how we need to make ourselves more available. And we just kind of threw Corvin and Mike Larson in the deep end with a theme and said, hey, go chop that with folks. And I think some good back and forth happened out of that. But it didn't feel like we were really creating content that was short, sticky, and helpful to everybody else. So we pivoted, and we sent Andy into the darkness to go write. And he went and put 20,000 some words down and on how to approach theme building. So really, we've always had an okay user docs, like what does this page in the dashboard do? How does a file manager work? Like, content exists around there. I'm sure everything can always be better, but we've always had content there. And we've got kind of that detailed developer API docs. Again, I'm sure it could be better, but if you dig around, you can find kind of the nuts and bolts from the bottom up. What has always been just totally missing is kind of a getting started as a developer, or recipe book, or kind of best practices in designing and building concrete5 sites, that how to use these tools to cook something up. So that's what Andy went to write. And as part of that, he had some thoughts around, hey, the docs would be a lot better if they were organized like this, that, and the other. And we spent the last month, Mike Esparza here spent the last month kind of cleaning things up, moving around and doing that. And we launched it yesterday. It is still very much in flux. We know there's some broken links, and we're still moving some stuff around, but it was, agile and lean. And with that said, I'm going to toss it to you, Andy, to kind of give us a quick tour through what we got.
Yeah, let's do that. So as you can see here, this is the new documentation site. Nothing revolutionary here. It's going to look pretty familiar to you if you've used the old one. But if we look at the header nav, you get a sense at some of the bigger updates at the top level. The editors section has changed to user guide, because we kind of thought, concrete5 users and developers are really the two distinct different groups. And sometimes the same person can manage a site as a user, as well as update a site and change its code around as a developer. But that's really two different modes. So we have a user guide here. If you click in here, you'll see there are some links up here that are still coming through. This is sort of like the user guide version of what Franz was talking about, that top level stuff. So we've got really good reference materials, which if you dig into the full editor's reference here, will look pretty familiar to you. All of these pages are still here. They kind of go into how the different portions of concrete5 work at a granular level. And we're still adding that functionality that is a level higher at the user guide section. So things like, when should I clear my cache, and why should I even want to know what that is? How do I do common operations as a concrete5 user? And then if you go over here, you can see a completely new nav item up here called videos. We've had videos for a long time. They've been in our YouTube channel, as you might expect. We thought it was kind of silly that they were sort of siloed over there. Not everyone knows to go there or would choose to go there. So we have created a video library for all of our concrete5 related videos, and any of yours as well. So send us a YouTube URL, send us an email, and we will post them to this page. And then they will just show up. So, and watching these is just as easy as clicking on them. So you can kind of, if you prefer to learn concrete5 by sort of checking out granular video topics, this is the place for you.
Let me jump in there real quick, Andy.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you said these are videos, a lot of them that we made. Jess has got some content in there. I do, you do. But just as you said, there's third-party content in there. I want to take a quick second to shout out to Jamie Johnson at Pixo for doing I guess that one right there, full concrete5 training, like just how to edit a client site in concrete5. And also Søren Jansen, we'll go with that, who did a similar how to just edit your site with concrete5. I think that's tremendous. It's you know, people learn in different ways, and having different approaches to teaching that stuff is huge. So the more of this kind of stuff that can be submitted to us, the better. There's a little form down there. Submit stuff. You're going to get some karma points and probably a T-shirt in the mail. We are give us more content here. We'll buff this section out.
Awesome. Yeah, and expect to see some little bug fixes here and there around this stuff. But we're pretty excited about these two major additions to it. And content for both the video section and the user guide section is actively being worked on as well, because it's not finished. Never finished, but it's got more to go in this little sprint that we've done. And then the next thing you'll notice, and this is what Franz was talking about regarding the documentation. We started with the video show last year that's kind of pivoted into more of an online self-contained documentation effort. You can see in here, so the developers landing page. A lot of this content is very similar, but we've tried to break it up in ways that are a little more attractive. So you can also see this if you go to the homepage of the documentation site, which you can't get to any other way except by going back. You can see we try and highlight the stuff that you're really going to want to do as a developer right off the bat. So we're teaching you how to do installation right off the bat, and you can get into PHP version requirements, etc. And then building a website with concrete5, the book that Franz mentioned, that is here, and that's also available from the developers section. So if we go in right here, you can see this is no joke. This is a lot of content. This is probably about 60% complete. So expect to see more stuff coming here. And really, what this does is follow that. Corvin and Mike Larson picked out a theme, kind of a bootstrap-based free theme, which is nice, so that everyone can work on this at their own pace, called Dreamers. And they were doing this on a video basis, and we thought it might be nice to do this video docs first, and then perhaps video second. So this is really structured like a book. If you go into the introduction, you could figure out who's this book for, and then what are we building. And this, if you've looked at that theme at all in the past from that video show, this is going to look familiar to you. This is a pretty nice concrete5 theme, or a pretty nice just sort of regular HTML theme with some different page types, different templates, and it's all just based in HTML. And we walk through the entire aspect of how we would approach doing this as a project. So we look at the HTML, we treat it as though we got this design from a designer as a client, and it was some designer or developer chopped it into HTML for us and gave us some CSS. But now it's up to us to actually integrate it into the CMS in a way that makes sense and that concrete5 users are going to want to approach. So we go through the entire process of looking at that HTML, breaking out the elements of a theme into different aspects, figuring out what the headers and footers are, actually looking into which pages are reusable page types, which are templates, which are block types with custom templates, or which are their own custom blocks, that kind of stuff. And then we go through, and then when we finish up, we have a final deliverable of exactly what we're going to build. And then we walk through the actual process of installing concrete5 in a local development environment, creating a package for this new theme, all the way from emptiness to completion, installing it, adding editability to it, creating all the page templates that we're going to need, creating page types. You can see that there's just a wealth of content in here, and we're not gonna call this complete until the entire site is built, but and available in GitHub at various level. But you can see that at this point we've got a few page types already complete. We've got the sort of general skeleton of the theme and a package-based approach. And I think for this, we've really tried to choose the approach of not, this overlaps with a lot of docs that already exist, but we've tried to approach this as a self-contained document, whether it's a book or whether it's an online sort of course or what have you. It will overlap with a lot of the developers' stuff that we already have, and that's okay. So we've got developers' website, building a website with concrete5. The book is fully available just right there at the top of that page. And then the full developer documentation, the full reference with all the content that you've seen before, is all still available. It's just further down in the developers section. And so then as you need to do more stuff that type of guide doesn't cover, like adding users programmatically, working with the REST API, you can do it there. So yeah, I think this is about it, Franz. If you want to take back over.
Yeah, no, I mean, all I would do is reiterate that. Well, I mean, I might actually revise and implied. I think you said at one point, like, this isn't complete yet. I don't think it ever will be complete. I think there's a fairly large shift in philosophy that has happened here, at least with me and Andy, in doing all this work with the Army and kind of reaching the level of processing compliance that we have embraced now. We've just reached a point in life where we both have reflected to each other in our one-on-ones that, like, really writing is what we are spending most of our time doing, right? Like, it used to be when we had some new idea, we would go to a whiteboard and just kind of argue it out for 3 hours and take a couple of quick notes so we didn't forget it. But then it was like, well, hey, go build that, Andy. That just doesn't work anymore. Like, there's too many people involved in building things here. There's too much process in terms of getting things tested and approved for the way we work with the Army. We used to joke that we could build just about anything in 2 weeks. At this point, it takes us 2 weeks to fire up the Confluence documents that we're going to need.
We can do it in 2 years.
Which is, it's fun to look back at the heady days of youth. But it's an exciting thing to realize that, look, the power of the written word is what we all kind of start with. I like writing, used to write on the blog a lot more. Andy's got an English degree. I just feel like we have sold ourselves short by spending so much time building features and working on the core, and not as much time creating content around what you can do with it. And I don't expect that content to always be perfect or ever be done. Or some of it is probably going to be wrong, right? As soon as we release version 9, we're going to have to revisit all this stuff to deal with containers, and some of the approaches in this thing are probably not going to be how we would suggest doing it moving forward.
Absolutely.
But that's okay. It should be our job to continue to create that content and be investing that level of energy into it constantly. So we're eager to shift our organization's focus towards doing that, and very excited to see this docs site go up. I know there's all sorts of weird bugs in it, and the nav doesn't make 100% sense, and there's some 404s. So we're working on that, and we'll finish getting it tightened up here, and expect to see more of it coming.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I got one more big thing to show. If you have questions on what we're doing, by all means, post them to the town hall channel in public Slack, and we will address that here in a little bit once we get through the next section, which is also. Oh man, that is every screen I got just changed. Corvin, are you? Can you VJ up? Does it say onboarding?
New dialogues and
there
page
was.
design.
Oh, I'm muted. It sure says onboarding. It
Awesome.
does.
All right. So, ooh, this is exciting. What I've got here is a whole bunch of comps around version 9. So,
oh boy,
you guys have seen some of these in GitHub. We've been posting some of these as they come together, and we've been getting some valuable feedback out of that. So I know Gary's been kind of in and out of there and taking some of that and scratching his head and updating them. But we have got to a spot now where there's a pretty consistent direction across everything. There's so many views in Concrete. We're not going to comp every single thing, but as long as we have a kind of a style guide that we can apply to it, then we're ready to forge ahead and start applying that to version 9, which is what we're going to be doing now. So again, just for context, this is not a bottom-up redesign. We're trying not to touch a lot of functionality that will require JavaScript attention, because it's not entirely impossible that we might change JavaScript frameworks at some point in the distant future. Is that evasive enough?
I think so.
Leading and evasive. Okay. So we didn't want to just kind of go at it and be like, hey, Gary, do whatever you want. But we did want to clean things up, make them consistent. And, since the version 7 release, we had some really big visual ideas there. And then we just, really got neck deep in this Department of Defense work. And so we just haven't had a chance to kind of dial it in. So that is what we are detailing here. So right off the bat, we're doing a lot of thinking around what the onboarding experience is like, and how we can make it just more simple and appealing to understand how to make basic changes in Concrete. I mean, you don't get people that long, so it's like, let's not lose their attention. We already have an overlay that provides help, but there's a whole bunch of news and it's kind of distracting. So Gary's just kind of simplified it. We still have the guides that take you through things. The dashboard has gotten a lot cleaner. I'm not sure that we really need a picture of the day at this point, when we could be talking about stuff you can build with concrete5 or things you could add to your site that work. You will also notice the gray on the dashboard sidebar is not so depressingly dark anymore. And in fact, the gray on all of these sidebar panels has become a consistent gray instead of like 3 different flavors. There's some standard window sizes, some of them a little bit larger. So these modal overlays aren't quite so tiny and frustrating. Now that we all have super duper retina screens, there's no reason that we should be editing in these tiny little windows. I think this is just another view of the same thing. But you can see our overlay now actually has some chrome to it. Like the title is not just floating in space. We've got like 2-line space for it. So this is an implied, hey, could we log in an overlay? Because that sounds reasonable, and like it's 2020. So it probably won't be the only way to log in, but we could add that as a way to log in. And you can start to see, look, this is a consistent treatment. So here we are in the file manager adding new files. It's the same overlay. There's actually a detailed file page in the background I think we'll get to as well. Here we're looking at this same modal for the page list add-on. So you can see there's nice, we've just kind of cleaned up the spacing between some of the rows there, and we've created more opportunities to do inline help that we'll get to in a little bit.
We added a dialogue title bar.
Right? Add page list.
What a revolutionary, it's revolutionary.
I know, it's pretty exciting. Yeah, so just showing various implementations of how this would work. The buttons have just gotten a lot cleaner and more consistent. Let's not have different colors and alignments everywhere. Advanced search, and now here we are doing a little more complicated calendar ones, and you can see, this is all just advanced search. So right now, the advanced search from any CRUD interface, you get to it from that corner, and it's kind of it is a strangely Chromeless UI. So Gary has brought back a little bit of structure, so it's a little more intuitive as to, oh, I'm adding fields that limit my search. We have a new side tab layout. So many blocks just have 2 or 3 tabs of options, like maybe the form block or the auto nav. But sometimes people build stuff that gets pretty complicated, and we don't want to stack up half a dozen tabs across the top. So we now have a optional treatment for putting tabs on the side. You can also see implied here that is, do I get a cursor? Where's my mouse? No, I guess I don't. That save cancel bar is like 90-some% opaque, but a little bit transparent. So the content would actually scroll underneath that. So you'd always be able to get to save cancel quite easily. So some of you guys have seen this stuff on GitHub. The ad block interface is no longer like luxury car dark, whereas nothing else in Concrete is. It's the same gray as we use on the right for the dashboard. So just a little less heavy, and ideally a lot easier to read. You may have noticed, if you've been watching these totally random videos for the last 10 years, that I now have glasses on during them. So as we've grown up, we've realized the importance of making things readable for grown-ups. And our current ad block interface is pretty dim. There's also a list view here. So you implied that you can search up above and limit this down, so you can switch between kind of blocky or listy. As you move things around, a little bit larger hotspots. I'm trying to kind of come up with some different options for making the in-context experience, kind of where you can put things, just slightly more intuitive. We don't want to open the can of worms of, well, let's rethink in-context editing again, because well, I think what we're doing today actually works pretty well, and that is, that definitely starts to touch JavaScript pretty heavily. But we definitely, with version 5.6, when you pop to page in edit mode, you got a 2-pixel dotted red stroke around anything that you could change, and it was very kind of play school heavy. And with version 7, we the pendulum swung, and we tried to go with like the cleanest of edit modes we can imagine. We're prototyping some different ideas to kind of split the difference with version 9. Help. So help's a good one. There's a lot of tools for offering help content in Concrete 5 today, but they're not used particularly consistently or all that well. So there is an overlay for first-time users, but I'm not sure our trial setup always fires it off. There is a little question mark tab that floats on the side of your page, but I'm not sure people really notice it. And if they do, I think they might think it's part of their theme, and it doesn't always show up on every dashboard page if we don't have content. So, as with many of the ideas we've had over the years, we kind of like scoped out a couple of solutions and threw enough stuff in there to prove it worked, and then we're kind of moved on to the next problem. So what we're doing these days is really using these tools to dial things in. So help is now part of the basic toolbar, because who doesn't want some help? And it's right up there next to add pages. Slides out a panel where you can watch videos, run guides, get more information. None of this stuff is rocket science. Some of this already exists today, like the guides thing, that already exists, but we're going to start using that more. So it'll kind of walk you through some of this stuff. It is context aware. So as I'm in the sitemap, I could get information about the sitemap, etc. And I think generally just provides an opportunity for people to not feel so alone when they're using Concrete to build a website. That when you're making a website, fundamentally, you're trying to put your ideas in a communication medium for other people to to connect with you about. So we need to do a better job making sure that you never feel alone while you're building that site, since fundamentally you're building that site with a desire of connecting with other people. So this whole help panel will give us will help with an opportunity for us to do that. File manager, so you can see a CRUD interface that is I don't know, just kind of cleaned up and just a little clearer. Advanced is now a big blue link that you're going to be able to get to. You can also see here the dashboard's open. We are on the file manager page, so that is blue. And we're not showing the entire tree. We show kind of the section of the tree that you're in and a link to get back up to the top of the dashboard. So we're hoping that makes it really easy to get around without kind of showing you so much stuff that I'm not interested in conversations if I am in the file manager. We still have the ability to jump to some of these modals that we have today. Let's go over that. But there is also now a detail page for files. So strangely today we don't have this. We have a detail page for users. We have a detail page for your Express entries. Most of the places where we have a CRUD interface in the core dashboard section, we have lists and detail pages. But for some organic reasons, for the file manager, just everything is in overlays. So we've introduced a single page view for each file, and that is much longer than this. But it gives us a place where you could send a link to slider2.ping and somebody else could go to it and be like, yeah, I need to edit this thing or whatever. We still have grouped content together, so it makes sense to edit all the attributes together right here, sure. But we now have this detailed view that we've been wanting for some time.
And I believe there are no more right clicks to be found in the file manager at this point. This is just or this was something that Gary and I were talking about, where clicking on the full row will take you to that detail page that you were just talking about. Clicking on the little ellipses that shows up when you hover will give you that menu. But you no longer have to just know that you'll no longer just have nothing happen when you left click and then a menu come out when you right click.
Right.
Because in retrospect, that was not the best usability.
Cool idea, but
yeah.
And so I imagine that actually means that there's little, I don't have a cursor, but there's little check boxes.
I can see your cursor.
Can you?
Yeah,
go?
I can.
I can't get it onto
I'm trying to describe the position, but you're moving it around.
I can't see it on the
down.
Computers are cool. Anyways, next to blank, there should be a little radio button in slider 2 and name, right? Because you still have to be able to select multiple files and put them in a folder.
Yes, there are check boxes, and you can. But everything happens. No more undocumented or unexplained right click only behavior.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
There you go. So yeah, there's a bunch of check boxes next to these guys, and I'm putting them into a set or something.
Yeah. So
I don't know if we're going to do that. In context search is just got a little bit more room to breathe, a little less icon based. Panels are clean to read, right? You can see the stuff as you drill in, you see less. Oh, here we go. We're looking at the settings now, which are no longer dark. And again, just kind of basic cleanup stuff. Like the versions is a surprisingly confusing interface today, where it's like you select these two things. If you want to delete them, the delete button's actually above it. So Gary has moved that to the bottom. Like, why would it not be down there? Like, fair enough. That little ellipses.
You have to click on it to bring out a menu that you wouldn't know what exists. So now the menu's been moved to that launcher, which makes it a lot clearer that there's more stuff you can do than just look at the thing in a list or click the checkbox.
Yep, and some more consistent treatments of look, if there's something to do, you're always going to see this little ellipses. That's going to be the menu call out. So
yeah, it's nice.
These are comps. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a difference in how things actually get built out, but you can still, I hope you can see a strong eye for, can we make this stuff a little bit more consistent? Each one of these sections shouldn't have its own look and feel and flavor. Also a pretty big push towards making things, how would you say, just feel a little more bold and friendly. Like the edit mode is a bright green. It's not that kind of soft highlighter anymore. Add is this nice dark blue. Like there shouldn't be any debate whether you were in something or out of it, or if it's on or off. Like this is very clear. I hope.
Yeah.
Here we are looking at the new page interface. As you roll over things over here, you get this big highlight again to give it that kind of tactile feel of, oh, I could click on this. But when something is active, it's just bold and blue. The title is just bold and blue. There isn't a big background thing, because trying to find that balance between, look, this is on and bold versus, oh my God, everything is like super chunky. Here we are in Composer, freshly rethought to be nice, bright, and readable. And there's a dashboard page, so very similar layouts, right? And opportunities to do inline help here as well. There we go.
That's nice.
Yeah, so these little blue sections where you can kind of explain what something is. I find that really helpful. Lots of interfaces that we use on the daily have started just to kind of fold the, what is this? Help me explain why what do I need to understand about this, into the actual interface that you're using it. So expect us to try to do more of that in the future. I'm going to be a little bit careful about creating nag content you can't get rid of, like this launch guide thing probably needs an X.
Yeah, I think that's from an older comp where now that top content's moved into the help panel. Mm-hmm. So that if you click the little question mark, you'll get the add a calendar and the launch guide button in that area. But I think having the blue help content under the calendar name is nice. Especially when it's stuff like, how it's nice to have these things on operations that you don't necessarily do all the time. So you might need a little bit of reminding. Mm-hmm. You probably don't need it under page name because you're probably adding pages all the time, and it's mm-hmm. probably self-explanatory. But like, I don't know, how often do you add an attribute? So it's probably pretty helpful to have it underneath handle, whatever handle even means. So I think we're going to try and be more thoughtful presenting this kind of help text in the context where it makes a lot of sense to kind of remind people of things that they may have forgotten.
Yeah, and all those kind of how would you say, those kind of onion skin knowledge opportunities as well, right? If I'm changing permissions, can I have a little nag that says, hey, you can turn on advanced permissions and do a whole lot more? Because with concrete, there's a lot of opportunities where you might be you're trying to solve some problem, you get close, and then you're like, well, I don't get it. Like, all I've got is this form field. And we all know, oh, what you need to do is this, then that. And let's share some of that knowledge. CRUD interfaces should be consistent. Yep, there they are. Boom. So that was the last thing. I probably should have not.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about those updates. It's gonna
be nice. I'm pretty excited about it too. I think that again, nothing in here that's like makes it feel like a completely different system. I don't feel like we're doing the version 6 to version 7 rethink here. But I definitely think it's going to give just a breath of fresh air, let us say, to some of the stuff that we kind of like stabbed at and have some good ideas around, but needed to spend the time to really kind of standardize and tighten up. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Yeah, we got about 15 minutes left. It's pretty big day. We didn't do a show and tell from the community this month, but we had a fair amount of stuff to show and tell ourselves. So did it. Do we have any questions that have emerged through any of this? Or
we got a couple. So I think both, but we got a couple. So the first one is from Stu Black 23. He's asking about advanced user permissions and what might be updated with version 9, if anything. He says, the advanced user permission model always seemed a little hard for me to understand and implement for my clients. Will version 9 streamline advanced user permissions for someone to implement?
No. They are complicated for sure. Like, advanced permissions quickly get remarkably complicated, but that's because you can do all sorts of cool stuff with them, and they also work. Like, there's nothing in there that I'm aware of that doesn't do what it's supposed to do. I think the hard part is knowing, like, what does that even mean? So addressing that concern, I think, would come very much into the realm of documentation. So do I see us spending more time making videos and docs around these? This is what we mean by group set timed permissions and inclusive versus exclusive setups. Like, absolutely, that will be a great use of our time. And I think it's reasonable to expect some more energy from us out of that. And you all as well. I know we're not the only people on Earth who understand advanced permissions. So if you're thinking, hey, this is pretty cool, I'd like to get another T-shirt and some Karm points in my video up in the doc site, make one about advanced permissions, and we'll link to it.
I think there's a couple things that can be improved with that, kind of divorced from design. And John the Fish mentioned one. He was kind of asking that we turn this into a question. I'm not sure how skillful I am at that. He's basically saying that one of the challenges that he has is when he has advanced permissions set up to affect a lot of things and to override things that otherwise would inherit, it becomes really challenging to track down which level of permissions is affecting the object. Is my understanding. So it sounds like his question is, could we have some sort of thing like that, or some sort of thing that would answer to that, to make kind of managing those things a little easier?
Yeah, I know Jira has something like that because their permissions are also annoyingly complicated. And there's like a little thing in the corner you can get to in various views where it's like, what permission am I supposed to be looking at to even try to change what's happening here? And that's the kind of thing that I imagine someone could build as kind of like a power tool in advanced permissions. Yeah. And I think we'd be open to that kind of pull request. So I didn't mean no as in I don't care. I meant no as in we're not going to spend a lot of our time rethinking that very powerful and by and large working feature. But certainly happy to have tools to make it easier for other people to understand it.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I'll say on that, this is something that I've run into a bunch, and for some reason I've just never fixed it. But when you go into advanced permissions and like add a group or add a user to a set of advanced permissions, the little button says save, and it doesn't actually save until you save at the final dialogue. So that's got me a couple of times. So that's something
that I think will definitely. I think version 9 and next steps here are to take all this stuff and start applying it to the core. And in doing so,
you think we just pick that sort of thing up?
There's going to be a lot of QA, right? There's going to be a lot of very thorough, hey, why does this say add instead of save? Because you're adding it the first time. All right, well, then that's what we should do everywhere, So I would expect we're going to, let Mike Larson loose on that stuff and expect many issues. So I do think it's reasonable to say, hey, the whole dashboard's going to, by the time we release version 9.0 public, it's not going to be, part of it looks like this, or, hey, check out this section where we've started this thing. Like everything is going to consistently have this look and feel, and buttons will be the same. And I'm sure there are corners that Gary has not thought about. And as we run into that, we'll tap Gary and make them look good.
Sweet. We've got one more question in the queue. Maybe we'll get some more while we're answering this, but we've got only one more. This one's from Emlo Kadi, and it's going to be a short answer. His question is, do Andy or I have any plans to look at the pull requests in concrete5 and the CLI repositories? I can tell you the answer is yes. I know Andy's been going through that a lot more than I have. I'm trying to get back into that a little bit more. I know on the CLI stuff, that's been off my radar. So I'll try to get around to looking at those pull requests sometime soon. And I know Andy's going to get to some of the other pull requests that are open in concrete5 soon. I know Andy talked about already today the pull request that tests for installing and upgrading concrete5. So definitely on our radar.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add to that, the CLI repository is a bit more of Corvin's baby than my own, so I'm going to defer to him on those. But yeah, it's definitely not orphaned or anything, so don't expect those to be left forever. The develop branch and the pull requests going into the core, yeah, our cadence was really high as we were going through the GitHub issues and relabeling stuff a couple weeks back. And now as we've gotten into document site updates and some other behind the scenes work for version 9 that you can expect a large pull request for very soon, there's a sort of natural ebb and flow. So expect that to pick up again. It's definitely not being neglected because we don't want to deal with it. And then one thing I would add to that is that there are a few pull requests in there, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, where it's not exactly clear. There's not exactly a way forward. They haven't been marked as stuck or anything, but definitely make sure that if you're waiting on a pull request to be merged, just take a look at it and look at the comments on it or the reviews and make sure that there isn't like a comment requesting changes or a review that's pending with no action since then. There are definitely, I'm sure there are some in there where it's just we have not yet responded, and that's on us, and we will get to those for sure. But if you're wondering why your pull request is being held up, definitely make sure that there isn't something on there that we've asked you to do, or that it's failing because tests are broken, or there's some other things we need to have merged in beforehand. And I know that Mlocati is probably not the biggest culprit on there, but yeah, this goes for anyone. If you're curious as to make sure why your pull request isn't in there, definitely make sure that we haven't asked you to tighten up something or to do it in a different way or something else. So that's all I'll say. And then we're going to get back into that very shortly.
Awesome. I think that's the last question.
Great. Well, pretty exciting. We got to get through the questionnaire results, but yeah, as I said before, pretty cool stuff happening. Definitely nice to be able to focus on this stuff more. And I know we're all really looking forward to the future. So I guess we're going to see you in a month and someone's getting an iPad.
Nice. Yeah, I guess the next town hall is April 7th.
There you go.
We'll see you then.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.